So far, you've gone down to the archives and found some materials that are interesting for you, and we've digitized some of those materials so that you can put them online, and we haven't destroyed anything, so so far so good. The next step is actually taking those scans that you've done and moving them to a website so that we can actually start working with them and do something interesting. So the site that we're using, or the software that we use to develop our exhibits, is called Omeka, or Omeka, doesn't matter how you pronounce it. And the main thing you need to know is how to get there first. So it's cdigs.uwindsor.ca/omeka/admin. And so that's the address to get to the login page. And each group was assigned a username and password, and you can all access the site with that information. So I'm just have a temporary account here that I'm using, and I'm going to log in, and this will get you to the dashboard for Omeka. So Omeka is essentially a software platform that allows you to add all kinds of files and images and whatever kinds of data that you want, and eventually work with it and build interesting collections around it. So what you're seeing here is essentially the administrator back end of Omeka and how you sort of add content and customize your site. So what we're going to do is add each of our scans as items, essentially. So I am going to go to item types. Sorry, I'm going to go to items. And what I want to do is add an item. So you can see that there's lots of other items that are already here. And so we're going to go add an item. Okay. When you go to add an item, it asks you to provide a lot of information about them. And these are the Dublin core elements that you may be familiar with or have heard a little bit about at this point. And essentially all we're trying to do here is provide as much information about the scans that you've done so that anyone who comes to look at them or is searching for them can actually find them and know what they are. So the most important thing is that a user actually understands what the scan and significance and information about this item actually is. So you want to give it a title. You want to say a little bit about what this is. You want to describe it. So things like it's a photograph from a scrapbook. It's small. It's of a nurse, whatever it might be. Who created it, if you know that. If there's a publisher, if you have a date, if that's possible. So it's also important to keep in mind that you may not know all of this information. There's some gaps here. So you want to provide as much useful information as you can, but you don't need to stretch it and make something up if you don't know. So if a couple of these fields you just can't fill out information for, that's okay. You just give us as much information as you can about the item that you're uploading. So I'm just going to say sample here and just leave it at that so you can see how it's done. The next thing you want to do is add your file. So you can see that there's a few different menu links up here. So what you want to do is click on Files, and then just select the file from wherever it sits, whether that's on a hard drive or on a flash drive or wherever it is. So I'm going to choose File, I'm going to go to Pictures, and I'm going to choose this just for an example. And here's a picture I took of that archaic scanner that you all had a chance to use. Now, if I wanted to add more files, I could. So, for example, maybe I have a three-dimensional object and there's lots of different images of different sides of that object that I wanted to include in one record. But for the most case, I think in your examples it will just be one image. So I'm going to just do the one JPEG, basically. You can also add tags, so this is probably going to be something that's helpful for your group or users in the future. So if there's some themes that tie your objects together, so if it's about a yearbook, or in that yearbook's about the University of Windsor, or if it's about a particular person, so those are useful general terms that someone might apply to the object to find in the future. And finally, if there is a geospatial component, you can add it here. So if your photograph is associated with a specific location, you can pin it on a map. So just to scroll around and show you how this works, suppose you have something that's about the church, Ambassador Church here. You could double click and add a pin to the map associated with that. So that's going to be nice later because we'll be able to use that information when we're trying to map all of these different items somewhere. Okay. So we filled out all this. We've got a little bit of Dublin core. We've added a file, some tags, and a map. You can fill out as much as this as you can, but the big thing that you need is you need to add your file, and you need to give some information about what it is, maybe some tags and pinning it somewhere if you has a specific geographic location that's associated with it. So the next thing we're going to do is add that item by clicking Add Item, and then you can see it's now on the list of items here. I can also go back and edit this item that I've added, so if I want to make any changes to it, that's not a big deal. I can go in and adjust things at any time. The next thing I want to do is think about adding it to a collection. So eventually what I'm going to do is each group is going to be set up with a specific collection for their group, so they can add their items to their unique collection. But that's something you can do at any time. So the main point here was just trying to get you to see how you can log in and add items to your Omeka site. And in the future, what we're going to work on is actually taking the items you've added and building an interesting exhibit around them that looks sort of visually engaging and interesting. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, as always, you can shoot me an email, David Johnston, that's djohnst@uwindsor.ca, but you can look me up on the library website. Thanks so much.